Good afternoon, everybody. This is Brad Newenswonder, Deputy Commissioner, and I want to welcome you to the March 6th Lunchtime Hot Topics. We have a full agenda today. I want to start out at the beginning sharing a little bit about with you the Apollo Redesign Initiative, the application window, and some key components to that. Followed up by Nicole Prim. She's going to give you some information about the English Learners Book Club. With that, Amanda Peterson's going to give you an update on where we're at with our early childhood programs. And then Sarah Perryman will visit with you about some resources and updates with English Language Arts. And then we'll end this session with Cynthia Haddocky talking with you about poverty and some of the work we're doing in that area. So first of all, I want to thank all those districts out there that have been engaged in redesign with Mercury, Gemini 1, and Gemini 2, and we are now in just the midst of launching the Apollo phase of redesign. And as we go through this, I just kind of want to hit on some key points of this. We would love to have your district consider getting involved fully in redesign, but at a minimum, we would want you to look at agreeing to redesign one elementary and or one secondary school. The one thing different about the Apollo phase from the three previous phases is that prior to this, we wanted one elementary and one secondary, but this year for Apollo, if you just have one building in your district that would like to get engaged with the redesign process, we would love to have them get engaged. Again, we still encourage you because we want to look at the whole system, elementary, actually pre-K clear through high school. We want this to be a redesign of your system, but we know in some cases you may want to just start out with one building. Also, in order to be considered, we want to make sure that at a minimum you have a faculty vote of at least 80%. You have to have a letter from your local teacher association as well as your local board approve to be involved in redesign. The reason we want these three is because it requires a commitment. Redesign is very much done at the building level that then goes across district-wide with district and board support. But the reason we require at least 80% because what we are attempting to do with redesign will not be successful with your faculty not only on board but actually leading in partnership with your administration this redesign. And then finally, you'll have to agree that you will want to redesign your building around the board's vision and the outcomes and definition of a successful high school graduate. This is the Kansans Can vision. It is also the same outcomes and vision that we are working towards under KSDE. It's just with redesign, we're able to give your schools some very intense supports that we're not able to replicate currently with all 286 districts within KSDE. And then your buildings we will spend the 1919 school, or 2019-20 school year with your buildings going through the redesign planning year, and then they have to be willing to launch their new redesign model in the 2021 year. Now that we are finalizing the planning year with our Gemini 2 schools, by the end of this school year going into the summer, we will have a redesigned flight manual that'll be available That's what will be used for the Apollo phase. It will also be available out there for any district to go through and look at, be able to see what the Apollo schools are doing next year. But every year we go through this, we'll add on another year to the flight manual. Very much aligns to the KSDE workbook, but is very much more detailed about the process of redesign, design thinking, being very intentional of certain steps you need to be at throughout the phase. So we will have a flight manual available for year one planning of redesign. For those that choose to apply for Apollo, once you are accepted, starting in April of this spring, mission inception will begin. We will start providing your district and your schools information necessary so they can start getting educated in the principles of redesign, what they're going to have in place, key dates for next year. That's called our mission inception phase. That way they're ready once August comes around next fall to go through the process. It will be your schools will go to a region within your area starting in the fall to begin the process. Redesign very much is a community initiative. You have to engage your parents, you have to engage your community stakeholders, your business community. It's much broader than just what your school wants to do. It's bringing your community along with it. But I want to stress, this is your redesign of your school. All we're doing is leading you through a process of redesign. So what we've seen right now currently with our 47 districts that are Mercury and Gemini schools and the 110 buildings within those 47 districts, what redesign looks like and what they've launched in Liberal is much different than what you might see in Twin Valley or from Wellington to Olathe or Stockton to Haven. So they all are unique. They're all designed by local faculty and administration in partnership with their communities and their parents. So it is very much what you want to accomplish in your school and your district. What it looks like specifically next year during the planning phase, you will be looking at committing time each week. Every 2 weeks, you'll have a redesign team that goes to the region. That's made up of 5 to 6 faculty members, typically including your building principal. You get to decide who's on those teams. During the mission inception, we'll provide you some guidance of what that might look like. But they will then go back in the off weeks and turnkey that with the rest of the staff in the building. The school improvement, changing a system is not free. We cover all the trainings, but there will be transportation costs to get you that you'll need to cover to get to the sites. You will have substitutes. It's no different than when you send faculty to trainings currently, but we are committed to come out to regions across the state to provide the trainings for you to go through this process. Some key dates to remember. The application window opened up earlier this month, February 4th. It will close April 5th when applications are due. Those will go to the state board in April for approval. And then I want to remind you that if you still want to know more about it, now I know that there's over 500 people that have already registered for the Kansans Can and Do Symposium in Manhattan. Hopefully you have registered for that. They may have closed the window by now because I just heard today they may have met capacity, but you might still check into that if you have not. Again, I want to remind you, if you ever have questions about our lunchtime hot topics and or have topics you'd want us to cover, send those to lunchtime@ksde.org. And again, we're just excited to be on this journey with you from the State Department, and we hope you're having a warm and balmy February, and we will get on with the rest of the agenda. Thank you.
Hello, and welcome to the English Learners Hot Topic Update for the month of March. Something that is new this year is the English Learners Monthly Newsletter. We are excited about this new edition as a means of communication to those in the field. Within this newsletter, you can expect to see technology tips, strategies to use with ELs, upcoming events, new releases, and upcoming conferences, professional development opportunities, both online and free, along with some that might require a small cost. Additionally, we are wanting to spotlight your school or district and the amazing work that you are doing with English learners. Please send all of those great things to nprimm@ksde.org. If you want to receive these monthly updates, make sure that you are on the ESOL listserv. Have you heard about our first statewide EL book club? On March 1st, we began reading Tanya Ward Singer's book, EL Excellence Every Day. This book offers tons of teaching strategies available right at your fingertips. In this book, there are academic language supports, differentiation charts, literacy and language objectives aligned to standards, high-level tasks, and scaffolding to help deepen language and literacy learning. Here is the suggested reading schedule that you are welcome to follow along with. Also join us on Padlet for our discussions. Please know that this book is for everyone. Lisa Ola states, "Every teacher is a language teacher." We need to bring all teachers to the table when it comes to designing curricula, assessments, and instructions for ELLs. So, this concludes the English Learners Hot Topic updates for the month of March, and look for standards updates in the coming months. Feel free to contact me, Nicole Prim, for any information concerning English learners in the state of Kansas.
Hello everybody, this is Amanda Peterson, Director of Early Childhood at the Kansas State Department of Education. We have a couple of early childhood updates today, and we appreciate all of you staying tuned. As we work to make sure that each student enters kindergarten at age 5 socially, emotionally, and academically prepared for success, we know that one of the key tools that we have available to us at the Kansas State Department of Education is the various funding opportunities that we make available each year for districts to help build their early learning programs. As a reminder, those early learning grant opportunities are due on March 8th. So these are the funding opportunities for the 2019-2020 school year for Kansas Parents as Teachers, the State Pre-K 4-Year-Old at Risk program, and the Kansas Preschool Pilot. If you would like to apply for any of those, you should visit our early childhood. You should visit our early childhood page, which is listed there on your screen. These are due on March 8th, and if you have any questions about the application, you should email earlylearning@ksde.org. Also posted on our website are a sheet of or a resource of questions and answers that you can refer to as you're filling out your application, as well as a webinar recording from January 11th that walks through the application in more detail. And while you're marking your calendars, you can also take note of the 2019 dates for the Kindergarten Readiness Snapshot. All kindergarten classrooms are required to administer both versions of the Ages and Stages questionnaires, the ASQ3 and the ASQ SE2, between August 1st and September 20th of 2019. You can visit agesandstages.com/KS for additional resources as you are considering what's ahead for that year. These include frequently asked questions, quick reference guides, and how-to videos that can provide training for new staff as they learn how to administer the ASQ. We also have a new fact sheet that's available on our website at ksde.org on the Early Childhood Team page that talks about the Kindergarten Readiness Snapshot. Again, if you have any questions, the most efficient way to connect with the Early Childhood Team is by emailing earlylearning@ksde.org. We know that many of you have been tuning in to follow the opportunity to strengthen early childhood in Kansas in 2019. Kansas was awarded a federal planning grant that will allow the state to develop a comprehensive strategic plan for early childhood this year. This is a highly collaborative effort where the Kansas State Department of Education is partnering with other state agencies as well as many other early childhood partners. And one way that we're working to make sure that everybody can stay up to date on this information is by hosting webinars every other Wednesday at 12 p.m. to share information, take questions, and gather feedback. There's also email follow-up with webinar recordings and key links, so you don't need to decide whether you're going to, if you have something else on at noon on Wednesdays, then you can always follow up afterwards. You can access previous webinar links and sign up at the Kansas Children's Cabinet website, which is kschildrenscabinet.org, under Early Childhood Initiatives in Kansas in 2019. There are a couple of ways that you can get involved in this initiative right away. One way that we are collecting information from the field is by collecting stories about times when Kansas families were either thriving or simply surviving. That's the Our Tomorrows initiative, and you can share a story yourself at that bit.ly/Our Tomorrows link that's on your screen. You can also get involved if you'd like to partner with this initiative to help collect stories, and you can do that by going to bit.ly/Join Our Tomorrows. We're also in scaling up the Part C Infants and Toddlers Program Needs Assessment. You can share a story about a child's development at bit.ly/Part C Access or bit.ly/Part CS for the Spanish version. And you can share information about developmental screenings that you or your program might be participating in at bit.ly/DevScreen. We hope that you'll stay connected with the early childhood team. You can do that in a couple of ways. You can email Becky Strom to join our early learning listserv, where we send out periodic email updates. You can join our upcoming early learning webinars, which take place at 11 a.m. Central Time. And if you have any questions, you can always feel welcome to email earlylearning@ksde.org. Thank you, and we look forward to connecting with you.
Welcome to this month's Hot Topic. Today I'd like to walk you through the Language Arts KSDE page. You'll notice on our homepage we have a Kansas Can ELA Spotlight. I try to update this spot regularly with great stories about things that are happening in the world of language arts. If you have a great story that you would like to share for this ELA Spotlight, please email me at sperryman@ksde.org to have your spotlight featured. What I'd like to do is just walk through the ELA page with some of the new resources that you will find when visiting this page. So under the Home tab, you'll find a link to all of the monthly newsletters that I've been sending out on the listserv. So if you are on the ELA listserv, then you've received these in your email. If you're not on the listserv, you can view past newsletters on this ELA newsletter tab. On the Standards tab, you'll find just some information about our standards documents, but then you'll also find a lot of great resources when you click down to these other links. So under Curriculum and Instruction, you'll see that we have some documents about standards alignment. Down here, you'll also find an info sheet about different online resources you can use in your classroom. So if you're interested in incorporating more technology, this is a great place to start. Also under Curriculum and Instruction, we have an Instructional Alignment tab. Under this tab, you'll find some resources about where you can view instructional alignment resources. We also have a resource adoption guide. This was first created by Math, but now we also have an ELA version. And then we also have an instructional practice guide available to you about strategies you can use in the ELA classroom. Under the 6 Trait Writing tab, you'll find links to access the 6+1 Trait Writing rubrics. These are not a requirement, they're simply a resource available to you. We also have the past writing rubrics from the NDPT if you're interested in viewing those. And then down here at the bottom, I've also uploaded some resources available to you about best practice for writing instruction. So these are just some readings that you can do if you're looking to improve your writing program. Also under Curriculum Instruction, we have our Kansas Guide to Learning Literacy. This used to be one long document, but we've since broken it up into grade level chunks. Make sure that you read the introduction before clicking on the grade band that best fits your description. Also, again, at the bottom are some resources over developing a literacy program and the importance of quality reading instruction. Then we have our standards document page. On this page, we have our 2017 standards, along with the ELA crosswalk comparing the 2010 standards to our current version. Currently, we've posted vertical alignment documents so you can see how the standards progress from kindergarten through 12th grade. And then I've created some resources for support. So teachers who teach speech or journalism can now see how the ELA standards can be incorporated into those courses. I also have isolated the grammar standards and then standards relevant to history and science, as well as creating an infographic about quality vocabulary instruction. At the bottom of the page, I've also linked in standards that are relevant to the ELA classroom, such as handwriting and library media and technology. Then we have our text complexity page. Last summer, 2 Kansas teachers created some resources to support text complexity and infusing complex text into the classroom. Here's one infographic that they made. This infographic summarizes text complexity, while the second infographic talks about how you can support students through complex texts, whether it be an informational passage or narrative. We then have a parent resource page. These resources were previously available, but we have since created information sheets for each grade level that you can use. Under assessments, you'll find some important information about the CAP assessment as well as a link to the official CAP website. But you'll also find some information to support the ACT. So the ACT does have standards for each section of the test, and I've linked those standards that are relevant to language arts here for you. If you're part of the Literacy Network of Kansas grants, this page has the resources that you've previously seen, but it also has a link to their current website. So if you are a member of the LINK grant, please make sure that you're using this litnetks.org site to access resources. Lastly, we have a professional learning tab. If you're interested in having professional development in your school or district, just fill out this Google form and a notification will be sent to us. I also do monthly PD online. If you don't join in for those classes, you can always access the past presentations here, as well as recorded webinars. Previously, we've created some modules over ELA instruction and the board outcome goals. These are still available to you. I've also created just a resource page of ELA organizations, as well as linking in events related to language arts through those professional organizations. So thank you for joining me today, and I hope you know more about the ELA page than you did before. If there are other resources you'd like to see made available, please let me know by emailing me at sperryman@ksde.org. Thanks.
Hi everybody, this is Cindy Haddocky. I'm the Elementary Education Program Consultant, and I want to talk to you today about poverty and the impact of poverty on learning. One of the things that we do as educators is we need to know what our mindsets are when we come into the classroom. And I need you to think about these situations. Do any of these activate your hot button? When students have a lot of excuses, a student comes to you and they don't have their homework completed or their classwork completed. Do you get upset when students become physically aggressive in the classroom? Like to be the class clown? When a student only hears part of the instructions you just gave or only completes part of the assignment you just gave? Does it frustrate you when students can't self-start? Or when students are lacking courtesies that we think all children should have, for example, saying please and thank you? Or does it upset you when students talk back, talk often, or talk loudly? And if you answered yes to any of these, it's pretty common. And these statements are the effects of poverty in Kansas classrooms. One of the things that helps us to do when we talk about poverty is to understand what poverty is and what it isn't. And basically, poverty is the general lack of necessities. If you do not have basic food, shelter, medical care, and safety, basically you are living in poverty. Poverty is also relative to the social context in which it's experienced. So there are two types of poverty: generational poverty and situational poverty. In generational poverty, a student or a family has been in poverty for 2 or more generations of their family. And in situational poverty, this is defined by circumstances. For example, the loss of a job, a divorce, a death, or a chronic illness. In generational poverty, most students from Kansas are in this situation. And these are the realities of this life, the people who live in this type of environment. Jail is a part of their normal life. Poverty is matriarchal in nature. Most mothers are in charge of the family when they live in poverty. Violence and gangs are the types of support systems, and sometimes all people in poverty have to hold on to it. Just depends on what they have is how they hold on. Extra money is always shared. Discipline is usually verbal, usually physical, and then the mother or the disciplinarian will forgive the person who acted out, and they correct that with food generally. Children raised in poverty have higher exposure to abuse, neglect, and trauma. And most people that live in or come from poverty have the need for instant gratification, and I'm sure you see that in your students. Children raised in poverty have poor organizational skills as well. Poverty has adverse effects on children and learning. One of the effects of that is material resources. The people who live in poverty don't have access to daycare, before and after school care. They live in smaller homes, and they lack basic resources for things like homework, clothing. Health and well-being is another thing that's impacted. People who live in poverty have less access to health and dental care and nutritional food. Food insecurity. A lot of people and children who live in poverty do not have sustainability for food over the weekend or long periods of school breaks. Neurocognitive and neurobehavioral development. Poverty contributes to these problems with executive functioning. So planning, self-regulation, task attention, those are all impacted by poverty. Housing instability. Most people who live in poverty are housing unstable. They could be homeless, they could be runaway. They tend to rent jump depending on how often they can live in a house until they have to pay the rent. People who live in poverty usually come from families that have a great deal of stress. Sometimes they deal with trauma as well. The neighborhood risk factors. Usually people who live in poverty live in parts of the city or parts of your town that are not as safe for children to be out walking or playing outdoors. School is interrupted often from children from poverty from all of the above reasons. Material resources, they may not have a car that works, they may be ill more often, they may have food insecurity, they may not have a place to live. All of this contributes to interrupted schooling. Language and literacy development is also impacted. Oral language development begins when a child is born. Children are born with the ability to learn how to understand language. People who come from homes with poverty don't talk as much, so therefore literacy and language is impacted. People from poverty lack social capital. They usually don't have a large social network of friends, and this requires them to trust people very carefully. And finally, cultural capital. People from poverty generally don't take their children to museums, libraries, theater, or travel. There are some classroom practices that you can incorporate to help children from poverty, and those include building caring relationships and advocating for students, hold high expectations and provide needed support, commit to equity, accepting professional accountability for student learning, and have courage and the will to take action for students who come from poverty. One of the things that can happen where students from generational poverty is they can break the cycle of poverty. And they can do that by forming partnerships and building positive relationships, and that starts in the classroom. Having school, family, and community partnerships are also essential. Not just having a family show up for a conference, but actually being involved in their lives helps children overcome the adverse effects of poverty. Engaging students in ways to relieve their stress and to manage their stress helps them understand that this is something that can be overcome. Offering meaningful and challenging curriculum. The equity in curriculum is very important. We sometimes offer only our most challenging classes to our middle class or upper middle class students. Students from poverty should be offered the same. Insufficient nutrition opportunities. We need to be offering free school breakfast, school lunches, after-school snacks, and there are often backpack programs that your school can participate in as well for weekend food insecurity. Practicing empathy among all staff members for students of poverty. This is important because practicing empathy is how we understand the students' feelings and their need for understanding a situation. We must be able to put ourselves in their shoes. This is much different than just caring for a student. One of the final thoughts I'd like to leave you with on poverty is from Kevin Honeycutt. He is an author and a speaker. One of the things that he says is the biggest gift we can give kids is to act like we don't know that they are smelly and scared and poor. We need to make them feel safe and loved and valued. That's the only way to end the legacy of shame. If you would like more resources on poverty, more simulations, or professional development on this topic, please go to the elementary K-6 page on the KSDE website or contact me, Cindy Hadeke, here at the agency. My contact information is included. Thank you.